Hey, my name is Meredith, and welcome to the Slinky Lady? I don't know. This was just an idea that I had, and I decided to run with it. So, this is my first time doing this, so go easy on me. But I am just going to walk us through what I'm doing here. This is a speeded up version, obviously, of the original video. I was posting the long version and the short version for a while, but that seemed kind of excessive, and I think I'm just going to switch to just doing the short versions for now, and then maybe do a couple special long versions or Twitch streams, so on and so forth. But we'll see how that goes. For now, let's just get into talking about this weird, goofy little drawing that I did. So obviously I'm inking over top of the original sketch. So the sketch was done on just plain old sketch paper out of a sketchbook. It's slightly heavier, than copy paper. It's a little nicer. But I decided that instead of inking all the time on my sketch pages and stuff like that, instead I was going to start inking on nicer paper. So this is on like a cardstock paper. Do it on nicer paper using the Lightbox. I like it a lot so far. I kind of miss the it's hard to explain. I guess the permanence, the heavier level of permanence involved with inking over top of an original sketch, because that's it. Like, now the sketch is no more, and now all you have is the ink, and that was kind of cool sometimes, but it just isn't realistically savvy, I guess, economical, whatever you want to call it, because this way, if I screw it up, which, sometimes I do, then I can just redo it, and it's not a big deal, and I'm not quite so stressed. And so it's allowing me to be a little bit more freer with my line work, and then later on with my coloring, which I'll explain that probably, in an actual coloring video. But anyway, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the line work here. I'm using a pen with a nib. I see some people call them dip pens, or traditional pens, or inkwell pens, whatever. I think dip pen is probably the best way to describe it, just because that's what I'm doing. I'm literally dipping into a little well of ink, and then have it added. And I think I'm using Sumi ink, that my lovely boyfriend got for me a couple years ago. And it's very smooth. It's a nice ink. I highly recommend it. And this nib, I think he also got for me in a pack. I think this is one of the newer nibs that I have. I can't remember. I think this was when I switched to a slightly smaller nib size, because I was using a slightly bigger one, and I'm working on such a small level here with small details, especially when I get into cross-hatching, which you'll see in a bit. It doesn't make sense to be using a fat nib. It doesn't work for what I'm doing. Now, if I was doing some more calligraphy style work, or if I just wanted that more of that thick to thin line going on, then I guess that would be better. But I'm not there yet, so eventually. That moment right there where I stuttered in the video is actually because I realized that swirly cue there was going the wrong freaking way, and I had already committed, to the direction that it was going, and in the inking. So I was like, well, screw it. So whatever. I mean, that's the nice thing about drawing, is that it's not real. It's okay if things aren't right, and it doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, but it only matters as much as you want it to matter. Does that make sense? Anyway, so for me, it doesn't matter. Alright, so, now here I'm coming in with a different color. So I decided to try doing, different colored ink and just sticking with the black for most of it, but then coming in with the blue for the hair because it drips down into kind of cloud-like looking puffy things at the bottom. I just thought it was neat, to do the hair differently. Excuse me. So, I don't know if anybody cares, but how I do my line work stuff as far as like the technique of it is you really want to pay attention to the nib. You want to do a lot, so you can probably see I'm doing a lot of scratching down in the bottom right hand corner of the video here, which is basically me testing out the nib over and over again, and I'm checking and making sure that I'm, paying attention to pressure and how much ink is on it, the nib, and because it can only hold but so much, but also it can hold too much, and then you end up with blots, and that's not good. So I'm paying attention to all that kind of stuff, but then also, you want to practice constantly making lines. And I know that maybe that sounds kind of silly, but or obvious, but that's really the whole point, is you want to get your lines as smooth and clean and purposeful as possible. See, these little clouds down here actually have like some of the best line quality because I just didn't care. When you don't care, you tend to about what it is you're inking. If you're just like, oh, whatever, it's a blob, then you end up getting these really neat line weights going on because you're not quite so focused on, oh, I gotta get it right the first time. You're just like, screw it. It just needs to be a little chunk of a cloud, nobody cares. But so that's always a struggle. And then I know some people that really turn their drawings a lot, and I don't like to do that. It's just a personal preference. People that do that, it's totally fine. I think it's probably better than what I do, but for me, I just like having the canvas or paper or whatever in front of me at the whatever orientation it's going to be. And I think for me it's probably more of just that's how my brain has processed things over the years, as far as if I turn something upside down, then I have to think about where the light is coming in reverse. And so that gets really confusing for me. And yeah, no thanks. I think for me, it's just much easier to do it in the same orientation all the way. But in case you're curious and you don't know why, the reason some people turn their pages and turn their images and stuff is because, especially if you're doing ink with a nib like this, it's a lot easier to go in certain directions with the nib, depending on if you're right or left-handed, whatever, versus like if you turn the page, now you can do that same beautiful line quality that you're doing in one direction. Now you can do that same line quality but in a different direction, versus if you were, say, like, when I have it in the same orientation all the time, I have to constantly be turning the nib and turning my hand and turning. So it's actually kind of a workout because I end up having to just keep like turning and changing the orientation of the nib to get the line quality right. So here I am kind of trying to thicken out some of these lines and make them look a little bit better. It's kind of messy. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not super thrilled with how this turned out, but I made a commitment to myself that I was going to post as many, if not all, of the drawings that I do. If I record it, I'm gonna post it. If I draw it, I need to post it on Instagram or Twitter or wherever. Like, I need to post everything that I'm doing, which maybe I'll go into that a little bit in the next video. But so that's why, you may hear me grumble a little bit, like, I don't really like it, and some people are like, well, why did you post it, if you don't like it? But I think that it's really important for people to do things for their own reasons, and so for me, this was my this is my reason. My reason is because I need to. Like, I need to post it even if I'm not happy with it. Actually, I need to post it especially if I'm not happy with it, because I think for years I didn't post things and I didn't show things to people, or I didn't get excited about my own work because I just didn't feel comfortable, you know, showing stuff to people. And I was like, well, I don't know, it's not really good, or, you know, oh, well, I'll show them, you know, next year, or I'll show them, you know, next month when I redo this drawing, and then I never read it. You know, like, it doesn't, for me, it just wasn't a good setup. So, instead, now I am kind of in, like, full throttle reverse, totally, like, I don't, you know, have any, you know, fudge to give anymore about anything, so it's just like, I don't care, whatever, like, just fucking do it. So anyway, back to the drawing here. So I'm doing some cross hatching and detail work as far as figuring out where stuff is a little bit better for the muscles and stuff. And so you can see I have the sketch still up in the upper right hand corner. And I'm just kind of keeping an eye on it as far as like, oh, okay, well, I've got a little bit of shadow here. But for the most part, I mean, I don't really need to reference the original sketch too much, because, you know, I think it's kind of fun to look at the drawing or look at the line art when it's flat like that and just make new decisions. You know, like, take a look at it and be like, well, you know what, it'd be cool if this was darker here, or if this was darker over here, and stuff like that. And I really only reference the original sketch if I get really lost, or I'm like, wait, what? This looks weird. How do I fix this? And we're getting up to the end here. So, just want to say thanks so much for joining me for this quick little a drawing here, and I hope you like it. It was fun, and I will hopefully be back with another voiceover one of these pretty soon. All right, take it easy, everybody.